Hello and welcome to the Guided Podcast. And today I'm delighted to have with me Antoinette Dale Henderson. Antoinette is known by people who came to our last summit because she blew people away with her conversation and a presentation around the subject of Gravitas. But today we're talking about some other things. So for those of you who don't know who Antoinette is, can I believe that? Antoinette, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Rob. It's fantastic to be here. And I have been running my business for the last 19 years now. Prior to that, I had an agency career. I spent 18 years working in PR agencies, specializing in healthcare communications. And then since then, we run leadership development programs, masterclasses, and I do some executive coaching, quite a lot of keynote speaking, which is where your guided members will have seen you, and I focus specifically on the topic of leading with gravitas, how leaders can tap into this old-fashioned word so that they can command respect, get taken seriously, inspire their teams, but also win business.
Cool. That's a great starting point. And I guess, we're going to talk about it, so let's just dig in deep straight away. We have this world right now where we have this leadership piece, which is about people and about direction and about, I'll use the word authority. You may not agree with the word authority, but command, gravitas. And that's all quite soft and touchy-feely. And then we have this other thing going on at the moment, which is AI, which is the way of the future. It's taking away our jobs. It's, we hear this thing about, how will the main board of Jaguar survive when 70% of the work can be done by an AI bot and so on and so forth. So just start off with how you see leadership, and then how you see AI and how they kind of, or do they not, or what? I don't know where to start on this subject, really.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I'm being asked to talk about this more and more and more, which is why I've been digging into my perspective on it. And leadership is being asked to deliver more and more and more with less. It's that classic phrase, isn't it? And there's some real challenges in many sectors, and presumably the clients of your guided members, some of them are going through real difficulties right now. So it's about, how do you cut through, how do you stand out as an organization, and then how as a leader do you get all your people pointing in the right direction and delivering for you. And what I've noticed when I've been coaching people, but also in the masterclasses that I run, is that the pace of change has just gone bonkers, and people are having to do at least 3 things at the same time. So if you're speaking to people online particularly, you're having to fight with all the other distractions that are going on, right? There's another message that's popped up on my team's bottom right, and I'm having to have this conversation over here, and I noticed that people are having to multi-screens, and it's incredibly difficult for leaders to focus. And so AI, I think, is exacerbating that, because we've become accustomed to the fact that if you want to have a question answered, you can pop into ChatGPT, put the question in there, and within nanoseconds, you get the answer back. So we've kind of got this expectation that that's how we should receive information. And that's having a major impact, I think, on leaders themselves, but also just all of us, the pace, but also the expectation of immediacy.
Okay, but we all know, we know 2 things. We know, one, that I can just slip over to this screen over here and go, ChatGPT, what's the impact of AI on leadership? And if I'm more subtle with my prompts, I can get a better answer. But we also know that this, because I'm looking at this screen over here, we also know that screen is a bit like a postgraduate smoking pot. In other words, very bright, but occasionally they go down a rabbit hole. Occasionally get caught. So yes, of course, it's a wonderful shortcut. You know, it would take me a day to gather all the information, all the research on a particular subject. You know, go and tell me everything you can about leadership and what are the top 5 trends, and then tell me about how AI and leadership work together. But it doesn't necessarily make it right. And is leadership really anything to do with AI? Isn't leadership? Isn't it? It's a bit like when people say to me, how is AI going to affect our agency? Well, the answer is deliver awesome value to your clients, not how it's not the features, it's the benefits. So is that not still the case with leadership in AI? Is it not still leadership is still leadership? It's just that AI is another tool.
Absolutely, it's another tool. And when it comes to innovation, there's a really interesting paper in the Harvard Business Review, which was by someone called Gary Pisano. And what he talked about is how do you create an innovative culture? And we need to be part of an innovative culture to keep moving forward, but also stay relevant and competitive and differentiate. And what he talked about was that, and there's a picture to illustrate this paper, which is you've got a picture of 2 poodles. One's fluffy and a bit crazy and wild, and then the other one's all kind of groomed with nice little plaits and nice and neat and tidy. And what he says in this paper is that to create an innovative culture, you need the balance between the innovative kind of startup vibe that I'm sure many of your members have naturally, where there's an environment of psychological safety, where there's very little hierarchy, where no idea is a bad idea, and all of that stuff, whilst alongside having some guardrails in it. So you can't just be innovative and creative and just come up with loads of ideas without actually having a plan around, well, why are we being innovative? Why are we creative? What do we want to achieve? How are we going to hold ourselves accountable? So when it comes to leadership, it's about how do you create, especially in a startup kind of environment, how do you create an environment in terms of actions that people might be walking away with, where you're still having that lovely startup, creative, emergent mindset, whilst at the same time, how do you have those guardrails and guidance to ensure that that innovation is going in a particular direction that's going to serve your clients and win you more business? And it's in the same way as if you were to ask a question to ChatGPT, let's say. If you just ask any old random question, you're going to get any old fluff random answer back. Like you said, you know, you need to make sure that the prompts that you're asking are going to give you exactly what you need, and that the voice that it comes back with is in your authentic voice. That being said, when I was thinking about this, that there's a quote from Steve Jobs that keeps clanging in my head, which is the one that he gave at his Stanford address, which was the one around you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back. And if anyone hasn't seen it, go check out that. It's beautiful. Anyway, the point being is that if you want to be innovative and if you want to look ahead, you need to create the dots in the first place. If all you're doing is using ChatGPT to come up with stuff, equally, if all you're doing is using social media to kind of, and what's on, you know, Netflix to as your diet to feed you, then how are you creating your own dots? So I think it's really important when it comes to mitigating the negative consequences of AI is to make sure that we are all creating our own dots. So we're having our own authentic experience of life. And that's where I think leaders come in.
Hang on a second. So there's still, I think we'll get there. What is the purpose? Let's start off. Let's go all the way back to 101. What is the function and the purpose of a leader?
The function and purpose of a leader is to forge a direction is to inspire people behind that direction. So the leader needs to firstly understand where am I going? Where do I want to go? But also in the market that I'm working in, where do I need to go to achieve my goals? So have that understanding, and then crucially have the ability to be able to communicate it so that other people can come with you and go with you. That for me, that is the function of a leader, and
Perfect.
yeah.
So if that's the case, then AI helps you tick, 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 because it helps you with a conversation with a decent bot. It'll help you clarify and articulate in a better way what your direction is and what the journey is and what the intention is, and it should also help you to communicate that around you, assuming you've got half decent social skills. So I totally get that. I totally get AI as a leader. Having AI on the screen can help and improve what you're doing, because it's like the best coach or the best team of coaches you can have, etc., etc. So then the issue is, how do leaders use AI in an organization? Because does AI make the head of finance, so to speak, the finance director or head of sales, does it make them less relevant? Does AI threaten the whole? If AI threatens the whole being of an organization, and we've all heard these quotes, that an SEO agency will be redundant bar 4% of its workforce within a year. Agencies are going to use AI more and more because it makes the quality of their work better, but it threatens their workforce. So, the impact of AI on leadership, tick, improves you as a leader with that private. The impact of AI on innovation, terrifying, because, as you said before, there's a wraparound, which is culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and if we screw up the culture, then everything falls apart. So the question about AI, the impact of AI on innovation, is that for some agencies, people are sitting there feeling devastated because they know that their jobs are at risk. In other organizations, people know that AI will make them more effective. But the reality is, if there's, 100,000 people in the digital agency world employed at the moment, they're not going to be employed. Those employees are not going to be all employed doing what they're doing now in 3 years' time. So I go back to the impact of AI on or in innovation. How do you see that panning out?
Yeah, and of course, what you've been articulating there is only one part of the puzzle, because the critical part that is missing, that AI will not be able to do, is ultimately it's about human connection. And it's very easy, it's very tempting for people to become digital nomads and digital warriors, and they spend all their time, locked into their keyboards and thinking that that's going to work, and not actually going out and talking to people and being human. But ultimately, to use another overused phrase, people by people. And what will the agencies that will survive and thrive and make the most of this amazing tool that we have at our disposal, the agencies that do that will be the ones that get really brilliant at building relationships. So building relationships with current clients and future clients to generate organic growth with the current ones and create new opportunities with the future ones, but also the ones that can inspire their people, create an incredible culture and workplace, even if it's online, create an amazing place to work where people love what they do, and that rubs off, so that when they're talking to clients and they're excited about the ideas that they come up with, that's infectious. So what AI will never be able to do is replace that human connection. I strongly believe that.
So you're saying there's a benevolent cycle, a virtuous cycle, which kind of goes, we've got the culture, leadership, people thing nailed. Therefore, we attract great people and we attract great clients, which means that our culture and the way we work and what we do gets even stronger, which means we attract more great people who are able to attract more great clients. There's a kind of a cycle there, which I think intellectually everyone loves the idea of that and everyone strives for that. But I still push back because I'm trying to get my head around this. If AI can get everything faster, cheaper, smarter, cleverer than you can now, then aren't lots of clients going to go, oh, you know what? There's someone over here who can do it for half the price. I mean, in the same way that we outsource stuff, you can get a freelancer for £50 an hour in the UK, £20 an hour in Romania, £10 an hour in Bangalore, or whatever it is. So does that not mean that clients will be divided up a bit more into those who want the best price, those who want the best relationship, or has it always been thus?
I think to a certain extent it has been thus. So, you know, there's a difference, isn't there, between agencies that are clearly just implementing work on behalf of their clients. They take a brief, they deliver against it. And agencies that are more strategic consultants, where there's more of a partnership approach going on there. So they can justifiably charge more and generate bigger opportunities for work. In the same way as with our AI, you need an intelligent, strategically thinking, creatively fueled person to brief AI to then come up with an answer that is going to be fit for purpose. And at the same time, you still need someone who's going to pause for thought. So let me give you an example. The other day, I was creating a blog, and I thought, let's see if my trusty ChatGPT, who I've trained to work with me and have my voice, let's see if it can help me. Yep. If she can help me, let's call her a her. So I said, all right then, come on then, give me a set of quotes to in my voice from my book Leading with Gravitas to illustrate these points that I'm making here. So that's what she did. She fired them off, and I was like, oh, that looks really smart, you know. That's great. Hey, look at me quoting this. And I was like, hang on a minute. I don't think I'd say that. And it was in quote marks and everything. I don't think I'd say that. So I went back to her and I was like, can you just confirm for me whether those quotes are directly lifted from my book or whether, or if they're not? You're absolutely right. That's a really, really good spot. You know, what I did was I took the essence of what I know about your work and I created these quotes. So we've got to be really careful that we don't put all our faith in these machines. I don't think they'll ever be able to do that. This is what I want to believe. And the thing is that your amazing leaders who are your members, you know, you've got to believe that to succeed and thrive. You have to believe that there's value in humanness.
Ooh. See, I think that's the kernel of the problem. I think the kernel of the problem is that we have agency leaders who are very tech savvy and very excited by tech and very aware of what tech can do. Features, not benefits, but like it can double the speed, do twice as much work, twice as fast, twice the quantity. We used to be able to do 1,000. We can now do 10,000 in half the time. Used to take us half a day to write a blog. We can now do one in an hour, etc., etc., etc. and they see that what they deliver at the moment is commoditized, that's whether it's PPC, SEO, web design, branding, almost whatever it is, with the assistance of ChatGPT, human, like an AI sandwich, so it goes human, AI, human, everything's done much quicker and faster. And then they're going, so what is, back to the leadership thing, what is our purpose? If we can now deliver what used to take us 40 hours in 5 hours, how do we run a business doing that? And I think the blockage is not seeing, it's kind of like, I drive a push bike, 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 and you say, well, okay, maybe you should be driving a motorbike. And they go, well, I've never been trained to, and it's different, and you go, yeah, it is, but it's faster and it's more effective. And you say, but it's the same principles, you've got 2 handles and brakes and stuff. There maybe the analogy ends, because the way in which agencies deliver value for their clients may be very, very different. So, old world, we deliver websites. New world, we help clients to get more customers, and part of that process is showing them how they can run or design or have a better website that works with them. So I think we're back to the impact of AI on leadership. I think there's a thing going on there which is about, and innovation as well. There's a thing about, it is all about human contact, but the toolkit we now have is 5 times more effective, and everyone has access to it. Therefore, if we want to stay ahead in this game, we need to be even better at the leadership, people handling thing. So again, I think there's a cycle going on there, which is, it's a kind of evolve or die thing. If we just continue doing what we're doing, it doesn't matter how good our relationships are. The fact of the matter is, we won't be delivering as fast, quick, as high quality as other people. So that doesn't work. But what does work is what you're saying, which is, it's all about people, connection, eye contact, relationships, trust. And then we use the AI or the tools in order to build on the trust. So there's almost like a model that says the bottom layer of this, the very bottom layer of this is trust. About that, do not pass go. But once we've got the trust, then we can build on that in order to deliver awesome value. And I think what's happened is that agencies are they haven't thought about how to deliver awesome value. So they're stuck there. And they don't understand what trust is, and they think trust can be undermined by the tech. So trust is, you think, what is, if business is trust, then we're into the trust piece, which presumably in your Gravitas piece is like it in the stick of rock, kind of goes right the way through. Your people need to trust in you, you need to trust in them. Clients need to trust in you, you need to trust in them, and then everything works. Because if it's just a I'm okay, you're not okay, I'm going to screw you over, I'm going to win, it just doesn't last. Well, there's a model there. I feel there's a model coming on.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. I think now's the time for agencies to evolve and to communicate how they're evolving. And, when it comes to trust, to be as transparent as possible around, this is how we use AI, and these are the checks and measures that we put in place to make sure that, we're serving you in the best possible way. And these are situations where we don't use AI. So when it comes to being innovative and creating new ideas for you and new ways to support you in reaching your audiences, this is this is our approach. This is our approach to innovation. So the two things can absolutely go hand in hand. The other important point here is that what you were saying about trust and the humanness around, we trust people who are authentic, is that if we spend our whole time just stuck at our computer, not going out and speaking to people, then we kind of lose the habit of interacting with one another. We forget how we want to show up, and it's difficult to communicate. We saw it during the pandemic, people just stuck at home, people lost those social skills. So I think agency owners need to be thinking about, how do we create an environment where we are encouraging our people to create authentic experiences, to have AI-free zones where, we're not using ChatGPT or AI to kind of create solutions. AI ban.
So a bit like going to a restaurant and leaving your mobile phone in the bin on the way in.
Right. Having a phone amnesty, having an AI amnesty, maybe having days where it's like, okay, we're going to get back to basics. We're just going to play with the guardrails of to what end. But if we're doing a brainstorm, it's a brainstorm, and we all need to come with our brains fueled, ready to create, rather than our fingers, ready, poised to put another question into.
There's more and more research coming through that heavy users of AI are losing their ability to think, because the whole point, not the whole point, but to be able to think critically about something requires quite a lot of brain power, and to not use that brain power of, on the one hand, on the other hand, let me look at it from the other angle, think about it from a systems point of view, think about it from a business point of view, think about their point of view, and just go straight to the solution,
right,
actually dumbs you down, because you're not thinking in the same way that kids can now write essays like that. So they come up with the answer, but what they've not done is they've not read the manuscript in full. They've not then read what F.R. Leavis and blah 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 says about it. They've not then looked at all the different notes that they've written, and they've not then thought about, how do I pull this together in a shape with an argument, and because they've not done the heavy lifting, they've got the answer, but they've not actually learned anything in the process. So leaders become dumbed down because the answer is sack them, or the answer is put your prices up, or the answer is get this app, but they've not actually gone through the process. So there's a real risk of losing that. Let's come back to the AI and leadership thing. So what you're saying is it's all about people. It's a people thing.
Incorporated as part of it, yeah, not only about people.
Okay.
I think, balance.
So to make the leadership, because leadership is your shtick, so to speak, to make the leadership thing work, and I think we're agreeing it's all about trust. We're agreeing it's about authenticity. We're agreeing it's about communication. What are the components of leadership? Your Gravitas model. What are the components that we need to be looking at to be that rounded leader? Because clearly you could have trust but be dreadful at communication, or you could be great at communication. But so there's kind of plates you've got to spin to be a great leader. I'm actually not a great leader, a really good leader of an agency. You don't need to be any of these famous names. You just need to run a great agency with great people doing great stuff, and you just need to be really good. But we have this idea of the great leader being these icons. I think we don't need to be superhuman. We just need to be great.
Yeah, absolutely, and accessible as well. And before I go into that, there's another point that you're your summary there was really triggering in me, which is that
I didn't mean to trigger you.
you're not triggering us like, oh my God, I'm triggered. But hey, I think it's really important that we acknowledge this. Is if we become so reliant on AI to create this content, if people have the expectation that it's good at the stroke of a button, then what's also going to be missed is the potential to fail, the potential to get it wrong and deal with the consequences. And as we learn most when we screw things up, and also they generally make the best stories as well, don't they?
Oh God, yeah.
What did you do at the weekend? Oh, I scrolled through my Instagram the whole time, and then I had a little chat with my chat bot. How boring is that? What did you do at the weekend? Oh, we went out and it was an absolute nightmare because the traffic failed and yada yada yada. That's what makes an exciting, interesting story. So we have to make sure as leaders we continue to give permission to our people to screw up, and we can only really do that when we don't use AI, because being careful to trust everything that it says, of course, but generally if it comes up with something, it's going to come up with something relatively sensible. And so, especially when you're cutting your teeth at the beginning of your career and all the way through, in fact, we need to be able to screw up and learn from that. So I thought that was really important to acknowledge before.
And is that a bit like calculators in our day? I remember my father coming home with an electric calculator, being very proud of it. That the calculator's great, but actually you need to know roughly, I'm sure you like me will know roughly that 5 times 100 is about 500, and 5 times 20 is about 100. And that you don't go to the calculator and say that's the right number, but actually the reverse. You go, oh, that's about 100. Yeah, the calculator says 99.7 or whatever it is. I go back to the human sandwich thing, that we need to keep some kind of sense on what's going on. So if the computer says £10,000 is a really good price, and you go, where did it get that from? Because that number's just wild. That you believe yourself, and you don't end up believing the computer.
Yeah.
Because there's that. Because there's that real risk that people end up going, oh, it says that I should be able to sell 10,000 units at £10,000, and everything in your noggin says that's not right, but you believe the computer. That's clearly wrong. That's kind of
yeah, absolutely. And so therefore, to trust yourself first. But to trust yourself first, you need to have gone through a few kind of knocks and bumps and difficulties so that you can, you boost that resilience, which is a whole other topic. But back to your question about leadership and gravitas. So when it comes to gravitas, it's an old-fashioned word. It came out in Roman times. It was it's a statesman-like quality, and of course that type of leadership, the old-fashioned type of leadership, perhaps doesn't have so much of a place in today's modern world, but which is why I decided I would rebrand Gravitas and give it my own definition, which is, like I said at the beginning, the ability to command respect, get taken seriously, get your own voice heard, rather than a statesman like aloof quality. Authority is important, but not from a hierarchical power over perspective. So when I decided I wanted to decode this word gravitas, I conducted research with leaders all around the world to look at what are the different qualities that they possess. And I broke it down into 6 different components. And like you touched on before, there are 3 which are qualities that we have on the inside. So our self-awareness, our expertise, and our authenticity. And then there are 3 components which are what enable us to communicate with the outside world, to be great communicators. So those are our presence, our ability to connect, and our ability to project. So when it comes to AI and gravitas, I think it sort of coming back to a lot of the themes that we've been talking about during our time together, self-awareness, understanding who we are as leaders, how we want to show up, what is our point of view, what do we care about, that's what is going to elicit trust, whether it's from clients or teams. The self-awareness is really important. Expertise is really important. Again, it's like, don't just trust the machine, keep harnessing and developing your own expertise to stay current and stay competitive for your own agency, but also build that expertise in your people as well, so that they've got that critical thinking, so that they're not then easily replaced by AI. And then authenticity. So authenticity, ultimately having our own voice, whether it's to use it to build relationships and rapport, or whether it's to have our own independent point of view and voice, that's what's going to differentiate us from bots, being who we are, having that humanness. And that, in a weird way, that requires, that needs to be learned. And then the external components, having that presence, being able to connect, being able to project. Again, bots can't do that. You might see a cute little robot. I remember going to a digital agency once, and there was a robot in reception who took down my details, and that was cute, but I wasn't connecting with it. It was a bit of plastic. So those are the components.
I think that's really interesting, because it's like, the only analogy I can give is that whole thing about these modern hotels where
oh my God, maddening.
Just drives me mad. Check in with the QR code, put your key, go to the room, and at no point do you actually ever talk to anyone, or that thing where you almost end. The point is that almost anything we do these days, you come across the computer says no. I've just moved house, so it's like council tax, nightmare. Parking permit, nightmare. Changing your bank account, nightmare. At every instance, everything is being done in the interests of efficiency of them, but not in terms of the customer client experience. And I guess that's the analogy about the difference between efficiency and engagement or getting closeness. I guess in a way the killer question, is how, I mean, as ChatGPT would say, in these challenging times, how can leaders best help their people? What is your advice to someone who's running an agency with, 5, 10, 20, 30 people right now? How can they best help their people?
Well, firstly, actively create an environment and culture which is the balance between the crazy little poodle with the fluffy hair who's just a bit wild and emergent, and then the poodle that's got accountability and guardrails. I don't like that word because it sounds very kind of patronizing, but ultimately what is that? It's like, well, what are we aiming to achieve? How will we know that we've got there? And who's going to do it? And when are they going to do it? Some tangibles. So to create an environment where there's that balance between the two, really look at how you communicate what you do. And I think the agencies that are going to survive are the ones that position how they use AI as a tool, but that ultimately their value and their worth is how they use their own human brains, their expertise, their strategic thinking, their creativity, their rapport, their immense knowledge. So create a culture which really illustrates that. Then look at AI-free zones where it's banned. So in brainstorms and things like that, but make sure that people come fueled, ready to think. And then create environments and be okay with the fact that people are going to try stuff out and fail. Create an environment of psychological safety where it's okay to fail. Then look at lead from the front, be the one who's out there communicating with people, building rapport, being authentic, share stories, learn how to do that. Learn how to do that, because the people who do it well are not just naturally like that. They've learned how to do it. And then if you want to look at Gravitas specifically, then look at the blend of the 6 different components and how you rack up against. I've got a Gravitas wheel that enables people to measure their Gravitas against those 6 different components. Look at where you're strong, and then look at where you're not so strong, and then take measure to actually work on doing that. So if you understand and appreciate the value of authenticity and trust, learn how to evidence that. If you see how important it is to connect and build rapport, and that isn't your vibe, you'd far rather just be behind your computer screen, then you can learn how to do that. You can teach your people how to do that. So there's some ideas.
I've got 2 questions. The first one is, can you just rerun the 6 parts of that wheel, because that's quite a lot. So could you just give me the 6 components of Gravitas?
Yeah, and they're all skills and they can all be learned. So the 6 are, there's 3 internal components, and they are self-awareness, expertise, and authenticity. So they're one half of the Gravitas wheel. And then the other half of the Gravitas wheel are your external components, and those are presence, connection, and projection. And it's a wheel that's got concentric circles, 10 concentric circles. And so you can rate yourself. You can subjectively rate yourself, but you can get other people to rate you as well. And so that you can see, you know, where are you strong and where are you less strong, and what can you do about it. And then at the center of the Gravitas wheel is the word purpose. So like Simon Sinek, you know, start with why. It's like, well, what is your purpose? What are you here for? Why did you set up this digital agency? What do you want to achieve? What difference do you want to make in the world? Big, massive purpose, but also, why are you in this meeting? You know, why are you having this one-to-one? If you're creating new content for your website, why? To what end? So that, in a nutshell, is the wheel.
That's really good. And the other question, which is just nagging, is this: there's been a theme through this conversation, a different theme which has been running through this conversation, but the phrase keeps coming up, and I'd just like your take on it, which is this idea of psychological safety. I mean, Google talk a lot about it. They say that you have to have psychological safety in the team. But what does psychological safety actually mean? Because you can say you're psychologically safe, but that doesn't stop you being battered by someone, bullied. So what is psychological safety in your mind?
So true. Yeah, and it's ultimately, what is psychological safety is if you go to work and you interact with people in the workplace, let's say in the context of work, and you feel like you can be yourself, you can ask questions and just have them answered. You know, if you make a mistake, you might be held to account, of course, but you won't be punished for it. So people feel freer to try things out. And so innovation will only really happen in an environment of psychological safety. And how can leaders create it? Ultimately, it's about, well, you lead by example. So if you want to encourage people to feel like that in your agencies, I call it selective vulnerability. So this isn't about a kind of laying it out, warts and all, and like, oh, and I'm really stressed and I'm really worried and I don't know where the agency's going, and oh my God, you know, all of this. You know, you don't want to be so vulnerable that no one wants to kind of be in your sinking boat. But at the same time, it's lovely to share stories around, I found that really challenging. And, you know, when I was going through this experience, these are the things that I was worried about. And actually, do you know what? When I did that, I totally screwed it up. But ultimately, this I was glad that it happened, because this is what I learned. You want to create a sort of storytelling environment where you do that, almost kind of around a campfire, so that other people feel comfortable doing that as well. And of course, the bigger your agency grows, the more aloof you might seem, because you'll have less ability to kind of have those personal connections with every single person. When you're all in the same room, then that's fine. So then you have to kind of create that psychological safety environment through the people who you've got leading the people. Not that I'm saying it has to be a hierarchy like that, but you can't reach everybody. So you have to kind of have your ambassadors for that, people who are going to continue creating that environment. That's what psychological safety is.
Great. Our time is up, as they say. I think we've covered 4 things, thinking back. We've covered AI and leadership, AI and innovation, the Gravitas model, and how leaders can best help their people. I'll leave the last words to you, really, in terms of, if you had £1 for every time you had to say to someone, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," what would it be? Or what would be your golden nugget? Or what would be the thing you'd like people to tattoo across their foreheads and never forget? What's your big message coming out of this conversation?
Yeah, and if people did want to explore their Gravitas further, then we're going to make available the Gravitas assessment tool that people can use to do that. So that's available for people. As far as the thing that should be tattooed, particularly in this environment of AI, is find a way of being yourself. So authentically you, but that doesn't have to be just one size fits all. I talk about the concept of managed authenticity. So find a way of tapping into who you are, being authentically you, but also make sure that you're adapting and adjusting and flexing your style depending on the people you're with, so you can get the best out of them. And ultimately, no AI would enable you to do that.
Brilliant. I love it, Antoinette. That's absolutely great. Thank you so much for being a great guest. I loved the conversation. I love the back and forth and the way it's gone. It's been really lovely talking to you. If you want to reach hold of Antoinette, all the stuff's going to be underneath. And it just goes for me to say thank you. Thank you so much for being a great guest, and look forward again to speaking to you very soon. Thank you so much, Antoinette.
Thanks for having me.